Written as a private memoir and a dream journal, Peter Levine's Autobiography of Trauma inspires readers to heal their traumas by actually sharing them with the world. Packing research and disturbing yet remarkable stories, the book offers non-conventional wisdom for becoming complete. An example is deliberately recalling memories of joy and pleasure before unpacking traumatic ones. This prepares the psyche and the body to face the latter in a rather medicated manner. While different, such an approach finds common ground with MAPS's use of psychoactive substances, making dealing with traumas manageable. Guided by the blend of science and the healing arts, Levine acknowledges inducing similar states without drugs as his primary field of research. Disclaimer: like others I already discussed, Inner Tradition sent me this book. They didn't pay me to say anything in particular. This review expresses but a few opinions that are strictly mine. So for those wanting to support me, links will be in the description. Trauma. Coming from Greek, trauma means wound or injury. From German, it also implies a dream. According to the author, trauma is not so much what happened to us, but rather what we hold inside in the absence of an empathetic, mutually connected witness. He adds that traumas can be transmitted through generations as pervasive negative emotions, also during conception or even from ancestors. Such scenarios create possibilities of similar events occurring in one's life. The good news. The good news is that healing methods are available and stored as information in the Akashic records, the collective unconscious, or anima mundi if you will. Also, identifying their root causes is really not mandatory for healing traumas effectively. Somatic Experiencing. Levine invented somatic experiencing, a body-first approach to dealing with problematic and oftentimes physical symptoms of trauma. One of its core principles is identifying the magnitude of and counteracting negative emotions with mightier, life-affirming and empowering ones. Perhaps this finds common ground with Morita therapy, which teaches creating and learning new feelings/emotions aligned with one's future self. However, Levine's method seems mostly retrospective, somewhat holding to psychoanalysis. Let me know if you agree. Either way, somatic experiencing aims to eventually create new experiences, and a big part of this is helping one's inner child feel protected. Exposure therapy. Unlike other retrospective practices and perhaps some elemental rituals, somatic experiencing brings the traumatic memory peripherally and gently. And this is partially inspired by Ilya Prigogin's studies on dissipative structures. Reversed entropy. Similar to Prigogin's experiments of introducing energy into an open system and causing it to shift to a higher order, Levine's clients increased stability and clarity by only slightly touching on their traumas, achieving quote-unquote reversed entropy. On the contrary, too much exposure overloads the nervous system, producing diminishing returns. Compounding. Inspired by the French mathematician René Thom, somatic experiencing leverages the compounding power of tiny and subtle shifts in one's autonomic nervous system. It produces its results through gentle exposure sessions in appropriate settings, and this has plenty in common with building habits involving creating new neural connections. Let me know if you agree. Research. Autobiography of Trauma reveals that the most critical research is really one's research, as that's the only way one can actually help others. Comment. Apparently, this goes beyond traumas. One example is solving your problems first and offering the solution, like many in the digital renaissance. Another, of course, is knowing yourself first, as that is the only way to quote-unquote understand the universe and actually provide value. And as the author says, quote, "My own injuries have also helped me to better understand the struggles of the many people who feel they don't belong in the world or don't have a right to exist." Unquote. Curiosity and exploration. Levine encourages that all can heal. The keys are our childlike curiosity and innate drive to explore. While these are commonly suppressed by traumas and over-socialization, granting them freedom is vital. It connects us to our true nature, allowing access to a vast pool of creative energy. Think of Neville Goddard and the art of true healing. Imagination and creativity. Unlike popular beliefs, creativity and imagination aren't only for children, but for anyone valuing their mental health. Ikigai scholars also emphasize this, recognizing doing one's Ikigai involving tons of creativity as the ultimate form of healing, development, etc. and according to Professor Julian Flaran, the creative adult is the child that has survived, unquote. And according to Rick Rubin, paraphrasing, great artists are often traumatized and very sensible, which is why they create in the first place. Life force. Autobiography of Trauma discerns the life force from the Freudian libido. It expounds that the life force is really our will to create, live, and procreate, perhaps alluding to the Kabbalistic Kia and Telemus Hadith. As within, so without. Levine bases his approach on magic's most fundamental principle, Hermes Trismegistus as above so below, as within, so without. Yet, he doesn't quote the Emerald Tablet, but the Kybalion. The author views the mind and the body as inseparable parts of the same whole. Somatic Experiencing unites the two routes, bottom-up and top-down, body and mind, into a holistic approach dealing with the total human being. The wisdom of the body. Levine explains that the brain's most primitive portions are the base of one's perception of the world. This leads him to conclude that our bodies are very instinctual, sensing and feeling, hence the wisdom of the body notion present throughout the whole book. This is similar to Regardi calling them the mind-body organism. It perhaps even reminds me of the old fortune saying that spirit and matter are like water and ice, the two conditions of the same thing. Levine explains that traumas are primarily experienced in the body, where they must be undone, which is why somatic experiencing moves from bottom to top. As found in Sufi wisdom, the body is the shore of the ocean of being, and as we know from Fortune and contemporary David Shoemaker, the Nefesh and the Guf often have more connection with spirit than the Ruach. Rhythmic breathing. Levine stresses the importance of rhythmic breathing. He views it as the link between Jung's collective unconscious and one's conscious awareness. Stress. One of Levine's mentors believes we can tolerate only so much stress before eventually getting spent and sick, kinda like chronic willpower or ego depletion. In contrast, Levine teaches resilience by actually accumulating more stress. This is a rather fascinating concept, as one's response to stress often has to do with willpower, which has limitations, whether perceived as pool of energy or muscle getting fatigued, as supported by Roy Baumeister and Kelly McGonigal, or an emotion with ebbs and flows, according to Michael Inslick and Carol Dweck. I wonder if this actually includes the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for activation and inactivation of the autonomic nervous system and apparently willpower, and potentially shuts down under acute stress, according to Judson Brewer and others. Psychedelics and placebo effects. Like Joe Dispenza, Levine utilizes placebo effects, which, thanks to the body's innate wisdom, actually become real. His experiences with psychedelics help him achieve similar results in patients, making unpacking and dealing with traumas manageable. Levine recognizes such substances as capable of initiating temporary yet somewhat extended ego death, like orgasms, which is the reason for their increased popularity. Synergistic Approaches. Autobiography of Trauma knows the utility of synergistic approaches similar to those employed by people like Dave Asprey and Aubrey Marcus. It argues that meticulously utilized psychedelics can actually help one achieve Jung's individuation, which some ascribe to the union with the AGA. However, due to their extreme potency, such substances should be taken with great precaution, only under a trained professional supervision. No comparison. Comparing traumas is a mistake. According to the author, a trauma is a trauma, no matter the source. Traumas can be vastly different, yet equally damaging. Overcoming them requires developing self-compassion and supposedly what Marissa Peer calls the sense of being enough. Retrospection. While there's an enormous emphasis on the inner child, the future self is not mentioned once. It is all about the first, who needs help and protection. And this may or may not exactly appeal to Thelemites, Setians, LHP followers, and fans of Christopher Hart. Eventually, the author identifies with Osiris, who, unlike the very dynamic and active Horus and Set, is actually the god of the frozen dead and the past. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't see a place where one is actually advised to take full responsibility for oneself here and now as a self-sufficient being. It occurred to me that all healing involved others and bringing back the past. Let me know if you feel the same. According to page 104 and the Krenek tribe, trauma doesn't happen to an individual in isolation. It only occurs when there's a break in the connection between the members of a tribe, or in our terms society. Apparently, one can think of this as a result of a malfunctioning egregor. Yet, as we know from the unfortunate, Western Dharma differs from those of the East and presumably indigenous tribes. While such tribes don't recognize the individual as a monad of society, in the West and the modern world it is the complete opposite, especially in the current stage of humanity's development, which is of the crowned and conquering child, given that there's pretty much nothing about self-sufficiency. Who should read this book? Anyone who wants to heal by running their lives through lots of retrospection, searching for answers in the past, and primarily identifying with their child self and supposedly nefesh. Well-written and concise Autobiography of Trauma may prove unmatched for that, and I have no doubts will be appreciated by many, as it shows the author's incredible power to share dark memories and inspire others. To me, the most spectacular was what he managed to accomplish despite those memories. Depending on who they are, others may prefer a more future-oriented approach focused on finding meaning and purpose here and now, one that encourages exercising free will and taking action as an individual while identifying with your future and more capable self. Let me know if that's you. As Marissa Peer says, view life as an hour. While the first 15 minutes were crappy or probably very bad, it's really about making the most out of the resting 45. And as Seneca says, begin once to live and count each separate day as a separate life. Yet, the book's primary goal is to inspire people to heal by telling their stories and leave the world a better place. I believe it accomplishes that at 100%. But that's just my opinion. Let me know if you agree, and thank you for your time.